I think we're good. You're taller than me, so I feel like we're good. I do get a little OCD sometimes because I've recorded whole episodes and then them not be recording. All right, Billy and Randy, new episode. Ladies and gentlemen, on the show today, one of my dear friends, my brother, somebody I've had a lot of conversations with over my lifetime, but this is the first time we're recording it. So we're very excited to have this guy's a great man of God. He's a great friend. He's a great person. Great husband as of lately too, huh?
It's crazy. Life
Matt Ortega is here. Thanks for doing this, man.
Absolutely.
Really
man.
appreciate it. I know you're super busy. We were just talking about how busy you've been lately. But right now we're actually sitting inside Everbloom.
Yes, sir. We're in the HQ where all the magic happens.
Yeah. How long ago did you start this business?
So a bit of a loaded question, but I would say the inception of it was late 2015, early 2016. So got the idea to do a coffee cart around that time when I was living up in Northern California. I was attending Bethel School of Supernatural Ministry, BSSM.
Shout out BSSM.
Shout out BSSM. Shout out Salmon Creek.
Come on now.
And I was there doing my first year and just started getting a bunch of ideas, like a surge of like entrepreneurial inspiration, you could call it. And just saw another guy that started a coffee cart up in San Francisco. He was doing really well. It was kind of taking off. And I was thinking a lot about the Valley in my time up there in Northern California. And was just like, man, this would really hit in the Valley. And just started really kind of digging into what that would look like, starting to map it out, and very quickly found out that it's not as easy as it looks. You know, a lot of people that I've met, and myself included in the beginning of this journey, talk about, you know, wanting to start something for themselves. And I think that a lot of times, you know, it's just a human thing, but I think we're more in love with the idea of the dream rather
than the actual work of the dream.
Than the actual work it takes.
Yeah, just starting anything from the ground up, from vision to literally sitting inside one of your locations now. I mean, that's just not as easy as it seems. People watching this already are like, wow, he owns that place? Wow, he works at that place? Must be cool. That was 9 years ago that the original idea just dropped in.
Yeah, wow, have not thought of it in those
terms.
Think
about it, bro. Almost a decade. It's been almost a decade. And I love Everbloom. Everybody watching this that's been here loves Everbloom. Even people that don't like coffee like Everbloom. That's what you were telling me today. Sir. So, dude, take me back, man, to 2015. You said you were going to school up in BSSM. You know, Bethel, I think when you say that phrase, especially to Christians, it has a lot of different meanings to a lot of different people. But I remember going to visit you at Bethel. I remember just seeing what God had done in your life. What were some of your best memories about Bethel? What were some of the good things you pulled out of that season?
Yeah, man. Well, you know, first I'll just say this. You know, I don't think that you have to agree with someone on everything in terms of theology per se, in order to, you know, find common ground. And I don't mean like core doctrines.
No. We're not like
I don't mean anything like that. I'm not saying anything wacky like Jesus is Lord.
Jesus didn't rise or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we would call it primary and secondary issues.
Exactly. There you go. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
And so, yeah, I would say, though I met a lot of people with diverse backgrounds, different perspectives, I would say the best thing I took from there was relationships. The best man in my wedding, one of the best men in my wedding, Raul, good friend to this day, brother for life. We met each other in first year up there and just grew really close, got really close to his family. And, you know, 8 years later, he was in my wedding, which is so crazy. Cool. Hopefully I'll be in his wedding one day. Shout out Raul.
No pressure, bro.
If you ever see this, bro. I would say the relationships, though, and then the experience of having an environment that's safe to fail up there is what I would call it.
That's great.
And so I think when we're approaching like spiritual topics, the idea of Christianity itself, it's a supernatural concept. And I think a lot of times in our westernized version of Christianity, it's very easy to forget that it's supernatural.
Yeah, what we believe as Christians is supernatural.
Yes.
And I think we're in a very skeptical age where people want to test things, or they just don't believe anything with authority at all. I mean, you look at the government, or you look at their boss and their 9 to 5. Everyone is so picky about things that I think we have squelched the supernatural.
Correct.
A little bit in our time.
Correct. And, I think that with the supernatural, Christianity is supernatural. You go up to a place like that, it's got the word supernatural in the name. So it can kind of get branded as a little bit of a wacky place, or a place that maybe doesn't have a value for theology. But I would say that was not the case. There was actually a lot of amazing Bible teachers up there. Learned a lot of great, solid, just foundational theology up there.
That's good.
Really challenged my perspective on certain things, because I think when you're born into a country like America with a common faith, like everyone, I would say here, like the state or the national religion is Christianity, or a belief in God of some sort. I believe in God for sure, is what most people would say when asked. But when you really start going further, it's like the questions of, what do I believe about God, and how does that affect me? What's my role in God's plan? Those questions start to arise, and up there, it was just an amazing environment to dive deeper into more of like those reflective type thoughts.
Sure. Unfortunately, so many people just take a sliver of what they see on social media, or they see a YouTuber do a bash video against Bethel, that they don't grasp somebody that's actually been there. Like you just said, you got great theology there. I remember going there, visiting you with my wife, and us experiencing the presence of God in a way that we never had before. Not that it was a new feeling or anything, but it was so pure, and the environment was so catered to God's presence that you forgot you were in a church.
Right.
So much of American church today is, how do we make the people coming feel comfortable? How do we make sure they like us? How do we make, I'm a pastor, and the temptation sometimes is to make the whole service about the people instead of God's tangible presence.
Yeah, one of my favorite lines, I don't remember who said this to me, but I think it was actually Michael Koulianos. He was saying this in a sermon. He was saying how, it's funny when people say, "Oh, I don't like that worship song." And he said, well, that's okay, because it wasn't for you anyways. It was never for you. And while I understand the approach of wanting to make faith more relatable, wanting to, in a sense, market, Christianity to the masses.
Yeah.
I would say that if you look at Jesus, he was not a very marketable guy. He was doing things that were pretty out there. He's spitting in people's eyes. Ooh. And rubbing his hands together with spit and mud, putting it in someone's eyes.
We saw how that worked for Mike Todd.
Didn't exactly.
So if the illustration went that bad, the real thing must have been worse. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
But he challenged the power of the day. He went after people that no one else wanted. He made himself accessible to those that were dirty. It's not like something we could sell today.
Yeah.
It's a countercultural thing.
Yeah. We'll talk about too, his growth strategy was to tell people to just leave. Like, when the masses would come, he would say, you can leave if you have to.
Right.
I'm not going to force you to keep following.
Yeah, man, he never chased people down. He followed up with people, because there's stories in the Gospels where he does a miracle, and then he goes later and checks in on them, says, "How are you doing? Okay, don't tell anybody." But you hear him with the rich young ruler. He drops some stuff on that young kid, and the kid walks away sorrowful. You don't see Jesus going, "Oh no, how do we get him back?"
Right.
It's like the gospel was presented, and the rest is up to you. And I feel like we're afraid of that in our country. We don't know how to deal with rejection in our modern day.
Yeah.
We think rejection is the worst thing ever.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, going back to who is church for? What is worship for? Yeah. What are we doing in these services? We get together and we're worshiping God. It's a commonly used phrase, but I think that even for myself, for the first couple years or so of my, salvation, I don't think I really understood that. I didn't come into the kingdom with an understanding that, like a fully comprehensive understanding that worship is for God.
Yeah.
And it doesn't so much matter what my feelings are saying in a moment, because at the end of the day, it's not that my feelings don't matter. It's just that there's a greater reality present.
Sure.
When we're engaging in worship. And I think that there's something liberating about that, because I think when in a day and age where everything is so hyper sensationalized, and we're really tapped in, to mental health, which is super important.
Sure.
I've gone to therapy. My wife's gone to therapy.
Same
totally
here.
Advocate for that. So I'm not saying
therapy.
that's not important, to be tapped into your emotions. But I think that in this day and age, when you're so tapped into your own feelings, your own emotions, you really can miss God. Wow. Just getting so wrapped up in yourself. And there's something so liberating about yielding to this greater presence, just God, Jesus Christ, unlimited, Jesus Christ unlimited, which is the Holy Spirit. There's something so liberating about surrendering to the Holy Spirit, and regardless of how you feel in a moment, just saying, I'm going to choose to do this. And Bill Johnson has one of my favorite, he says something so profound. He says that my act of worship in my pain is an offering that I won't be able to give in eternity. Because what does the Bible say? He's going to wipe away every tear, right?
Yeah, there won't be pain in eternity.
And no more pain, no more sorrow.
Yeah.
So in eternity, you don't have the opportunity that you're actually presented with right now.
Yeah.
In this moment, you have an opportunity to yield in light of this greater purpose.
Yeah.
And just say, you know what? I'm going to put my pain to the side here. I'm going to choose worship even in the midst of that.
Yeah, you don't know what it does to his heart when you choose worship over your own feelings. Because, pain is fleeting, emotions are fleeting. What we're feeling is going up and down, but the act of worship is consistent. I think about Romans 12, where it says, present your bodies as a living sacrifice. Like in eternity, there won't be a need for a sacrifice.
Right.
In eternity, there won't be need. You'll be experiencing life perfect. So to get up on the altar in the middle of pain, in the middle of suffering. Someone asked me, one of my friends who's an atheist, we were having this conversation, and she can be a little intense at times. And she said something like, all you Christians just come to Jesus for the best life now. And it sounded like, like a Joel Osteen book cover or something. And she goes, why are you a Christian? Like, what do you think of Christianity? And I was like, I feel like Christianity is how to suffer well.
Wow.
And she just kind of stepped back a second and was like, what do you mean? And right away I was like, see, got her. And the idea is I'm going to suffer. It's not talked about in a lot of sermons today, but suffering is a part of life. It's probably the only thing that connects every human, is that we're going to suffer at some point. And yet Christianity gives us a way to not suffer in vain.
Wow.
Wow. Paul says, I want to become like him in his suffering, be acquainted with him in his death. And here in this side of the world, we're trying to keep people alive as long as we can. We got Neuralinks now. We got people wanting to live forever.
Yep.
Not knowing that the key part of your faith is how you suffer.
Yep.
I think it's so great. I love your heart on so much of this stuff, man. I can think back to times where we were sitting having coffee, for hours just talking about Jesus. We've never recorded one until now.
Yeah.
But how many years did you do at Bethel?
I did 2 years in total, so I had a gap year. So it was spread out over the span of 3 years.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's up in Redding?
That's in Redding, California.
Yeah. What was your favorite part about Redding, being up north there?
It is very woodsy, and it's kind of outdoorsy. There's a lake, much kind of like what I'd imagine Western New York to be like, actually.
Rural.
Yep.
Lots of trees, lots of woods.
Yep. And so that was different for me being a Southern California boy. The only version of the beach I saw were Los Angeles, San Diego. And then I go up there, and if you go to the coast up there, you have the beach, but then right behind the beach, it's like a forest with redwoods.
That's
which
crazy.
is kind of trippy. It's like beautiful and moody. And just a different vibe.
Yeah, very much. I'd imagine like Oregon beaches.
Exactly.
Like up in the Northwest, just things are different. So talk to me a little about the time from going from Bethel to transitioning back to like your church or where you were attending church at the time. Because we've sent a couple kids up to Bethel. I know a bunch of people that have gone there. And a lot of them said, the transition was tough because you go from such a faith, supernatural school of ministry, it's like embedded there, to now back to reality. What was that like for you, doing 2 years with a gap and then coming home?
Yeah, so I would say that transition difficulty, it's a very real thing.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that it is an absolute, like you absolutely are going to struggle.
Nah.
I don't believe that, but I do think that it can be easy to get caught up in a struggle with transition, just because you are on like a mountaintop,
sure,
so to speak, like an experience that's really it's not reality. You're in worship like 5 days a week with like 1,000+ people. It's like a conference.
Sounds great.
Yeah, it sounds great. Like, who wouldn't want to be at a conference for 9 months straight?
Who wouldn't want to be a Christian there?
Right, exactly. So, but I would say the biggest difference, and I think what is so underrated that really I think has sustained me even in times where I've maybe gotten a little bit off the beaten path in my own journey with Jesus, has really just been, which is something I've looked to you in, is just the importance of daily disciplines, daily practices that ground you, whether it be journaling, whether it be taking some time to meditate, just read through the scriptures, picking a familiar passage and just sitting there and soaking it up. Prayer.
It's the only appointment that you can't afford to miss. Is your time with Jesus. I mean, there's seasons that I've gone through where prayer is easy, and it's easy to get up early. It's easy to love on him. It's easy to walk around and pray for hours. And then there's been seasons where it's not so easy, and I don't want to do it, and I don't feel like doing it. And I'm just so thankful that my salvation wasn't based on my feelings. Because if that was the case, I would be saved. But if that's true, then prayer and intimacy with Jesus can't be based on feelings either. So there's times where I schedule it in my phone, like prayer, meeting with Jesus. Like there's been seasons where I don't want to pray, but I have to set an alarm to wake up, but also in a calendar event, time with God. Because you schedule everything else in your life. You schedule everything else you think is important. Why not the one who is your life?
I think there's this probably unhealthy belief that circulates amongst the body of Christ, believers, that is basically the thought that says, if I'm not feeling this rush of passion and energy for God, and I'm not feeling like I'm on this mountaintop, or I'm not feeling super juiced up to get into prayer today or read, or if I feel like I walked away from reading scripture and I have no idea what I just read, that somehow it means less. And that couldn't be further from the truth. I learned this in marriage. Just because you have to ask your partner for something that you wouldn't naturally do on your own doesn't make it any less loving. So if I'm talking to my wife, she's telling me, hey, I would really like it, because like my love language is, or her love language is, physical touch. I really like it when you like hold my hand when we do X, Y, or Z. And my natural inclination might not be to do that, because maybe my love language isn't physical touch, but I know it really matters to my wife. So she told me that, and even though I don't feel that in the moment, like I'm gonna do it. I'll get her flowers or whatever it is, right? I'm gonna do these little acts of love, and I think that's the same way with the Lord. You do little actions of love that amount to much in the long run. On a daily basis, you do little things, right?
It's that compound interest building up over time.
Correct.
So prayer, scripture, confession, talking to him, lament, just being honest with him. I have a chair in my living room that's my prayer chair, and there's days that I don't feel like praying, that as long as I get in that chair, I know he's pleased.
Yeah.
You know, and I've made that kind of like powerful. A rule in my life where it's like, I might not feel like, shot top, walking around praying in the spirit, all that kind of stuff. But sometimes I just sit in that chair, close my eyes and say, God, I'm here. I showed up. Speak to me, and I love what you said about practices. Because I think we've both really grown through some John Mark Comer stuff.
Yeah.
Some of those simple routines that he talks about, the Sabbath practice, the prayer and meditation. I've actually tried the silence, like as prayer. Have you ever done that?
Yeah. I've been on a silent retreat before, actually.
Really?
That was crazy.
Okay, well, I want to hear about that. Yeah. Because when we talk about prayer as silence, we're literally talking about just sitting before God, no music, no nothing, being quiet. And just try doing it. If you think this sounds crazy, just try sitting in silence for 5 minutes and see what your brain does. Because I feel like the real you comes out when you're left by yourself. It was Pascal, the Christian philosopher, that said all of man's problems stem from his inability to be in a room by himself.
Wow.
Every problem you face.
And what is going on today, right? Like what is the number one thing that is everything in the world around us today is trying to get you to do precisely not that.
Yeah. Stay busy. Stay stimulated. Stay looking at stuff.
Keep getting a hit of dopamine.
Yes,
right?
Bro. Which, by the way, I know you wanted to ask about. It's like on my light phone.
Dude, I need to check that thing out after we finish here.
It's funny. I was texting Matt, and my text bubbles are green now. So get at me. But I've gotten this new phone that's literally just a phone, an alarm, a calendar, music, and notes. And it's like I was waiting for you to get here to the shop, and I'm like, normally I would be on Instagram, just like so. Instead, I just kind of meditated on the Lord for a little bit, thought about this conversation, and the distraction-free steps I've been taking have helped my soul so much. Yeah. So what was the silent retreat you went on? When was that? Where was it? Like, how that happen?
That was in first year at BSSM.
This is at Bethel.
Yep. So we went up, but it was through a little community up there, and that kind of planned it, like a separate group of people that planned it, and I went on it, and we just went out to the mountains for, I think it was 2 or 3 days. I think it was a weekend. And yeah, it was like an entire day, one day of just like silence, like
nothing.
And one of the things that we learned up there was that prayer can happen in silence.
Yeah.
Sometimes just sitting there and not saying something is more important than trying to think of what to say.
Yeah, because prayer can sometimes be like a religious routine or a performance. Like we have to say these words to articulate. We want to sound good to God, as if He doesn't know our heart.
Correct.
So how long was that? Just a whole day you were
gone? Yeah, it was about a day of silence.
And you're not talking at all?
You're not talking, you're not interacting. You don't have technology up there. So it's really just removing all distractions. And I really think that's what it's about. It's not... Literally, I think more than half the battle today is just not about what we can add to our lives in God, but what we can remove. Like the Bible says, the Lord says, "Be still and know that I am God." And that the original language there, that word for "be still" is the same root word for healing, like Jehovah Rapha.
Wow,
God my healer.
Yeah.
And so I really think that a lot of our issues in today's day and age, and in just our faith even, it stems from not being able to be still. Yeah. And I'll be the first to admit, like, it's really hard. It is really hard. Like, life only gets busier.
Yeah.
You only get more responsibilities. And so I would say that the most important thing is we have to fight, to almost remove things. Like, no, I don't want to add anymore.
Yeah.
I need to stop adding. I need to step back from some things. It says Jesus often went to quiet places and prayed.
Yeah, he withdrew to desolate places. Yeah.
To desolate places.
Yeah. And even times when people had to come and find him in his prayer time. Like, when was the last time someone had to come get you because you were spending too much time with God?
Yeah.
It's just something that's countercultural to the craze of Western society. And I always get refreshed when I get around people that talk slower, walk slower, think slower, not because they're weak and they're less than, but because they're almost more wise. When I sit and talk with my dad, he takes his time to share something. And we're in a day and age where people want it now. And if it comes late, they're angry. And it's like God wants to meet you in that stillness. And meet you there. what would you say to somebody that's maybe struggling a little bit with their prayer time? You know, they're watching this and they're like, I want to pray, but
yeah, you got to create a discipline, like a routine. I would say just like most practical thing, make a routine, you know, whether it's starting your day and getting up a little earlier or taking some time at the end of the day. I found for me, the end of the day is not as practical because I feel a little bit more spent. I feel a little bit more drained. I don't know what's going to happen in my day. I could come home really exhausted and maybe just be less likely to really want to get into prayer, honestly. But in the beginning of the day, you know, you're ideally fully rested. You know, you should be alert.
Yeah, the first part of the day.
Yep. And you're just getting up and you're just carving out that time. It's really, I would say it's building the habit first, the routine, creating the space, and then I think letting you just trust God to fill it for you. You could go and sit there, even if it's for 30 minutes or 15 minutes, and it's just silence. Like, you don't have to have this master plan. It's just the Lord saw that you took the time to get up and carve that time out. And I think that's what matters to him. And I think as you kind of go and you kind of start pacing into that, you start to discover that, you know, the Lord will put things on your heart. He'll remind you of things.
Yeah, put people on your heart, put things on your heart. Yeah, my morning routine is I usually get up and, you know, it's in this season, it's been like 5 a.m. just because my daughter, we get things going early in our house. And so when you're planning your routine, you have to think about normal life stuff and how does God become priority. So I get up, first thing I do every morning is make coffee. I'm not gonna lie. First thing I do. Before I even think about God, I think about the coffee maker. I get my coffee and I usually put some music on and I get in my word. Before I start praying, I get in the Bible because I'm looking for something to trigger time with God. And so right now I'm reading through the Gospel of Matthew, some days 1 chapter, some days 3, but every now and then there'll be something that hits me. And this morning I was reading Matthew 27 about Judas changing his mind. And that part of the story where Judas betrays Jesus. And then the Bible says, it literally says in the ESV, Judas changed his mind and he went back and he put the 30 pieces of silver back to the Pharisees and gave it back. And I thought, what a trip. He was so close to being redeemed because he changed his mind. He turned from what he was doing, but then he goes and hangs himself. And before Jesus can die for him, he kills himself. And I just thought, how many times in my life have I got ahead of Jesus? How many times in my life have I tried to do more than trusting what Jesus did? And I just got into a time with God. Just, you know, Lord, I never want to get ahead of what you're doing. I never want to go too far. I never want to get past you. And then that just brought on the spirit of prayer, where now I'm thinking of people and I'm praying in the spirit and things are coming to mind. But it all started with a routine, having something to do. You know, you got to know what you're reading. I love when people are like, I just open up my Bible, roulette style. And listen, God can speak. I'm not going to judge or whatever, but I think it's good to have a plan. Like, I need to read this. You know, we were talking about suffering earlier. I need to read on suffering. So find a plan, find a routine. It's pretty awesome. So you come back from Bethel, you get back involved with church. Everbloom, is that just something that's burning in your heart the whole time? Or like, when did it really take off to where you're doing something?
So I came back in 2018 from my stint up there and kind of came back not entirely sure of what to do. I was broke and needed a job, so I started working again as quickly as I could, and then I did that for about a year. Just was working really hard to pay off some debt I had accrued and whatnot. But the whole time I think that I had tried, and with my now business partner EJ, shout out EJ,
gotta shout him out. You mentioned his name. You gotta shout him out.
So we had met in college years before that, back in I think EJ and I met 2013, 2014, probably like 2014, and he was I was in contact with him still. We were both working as servers at a restaurant. Wilma and Frida's, downtown Palm Springs.
Now, were you always like making coffee? Were you always into coffee? Because I think there's a certain degree of coffee love. Like, there's people that love to drink it, there's people that make it, and then there's people that like study it.
Yes, I studied it for sure. So I didn't realize that coffee was as much of a science and an art as it was. And that's what sparked the desire to want to open a business. So that's what sparked even the coffee cart idea, because I realized like there's a real art to this.
Yeah.
Immediately. So when I moved up to Bethel, someone showed me a pour over for the first time. They had a Chemex. It's called the Chemex. It looks like a flower vase, honestly. Yeah. It's a glass thing that you and everyone knows what a pour over. Most people know what a pour over is now, but I would say like back then I hadn't really heard of it. And someone showed it to me and I was like, what the heck? And I started looking into it. I was like, okay, let me buy the Chemex. So I bought the Chemex and then I started reading. I was like, oh my gosh, I need like the right grinder, because there's like a special type of grinder you're supposed to have for these, like a specific grinder. I was like, okay, let me get the grinder. Then I'm reading, I'm like, oh, well, you got to weigh everything out and be really precise, because there's recipes and ratios used. I was like, well, I got to get a scale. So I go and I get the scale. And then I'm like, okay, I need hot water. But there's a special type of kettle you need to distribute and pour the water with a certain flow rate.
This is a science.
In the water, when you're pouring the water. And so went out and bought the kettle, and I was just like, wow, this is intense. I love it. This is awesome.
Yeah. So your mind probably loved it, bro.
Yeah. Bought some books to read up on, like, on the science behind it a little bit, and then just started studying it more and fell in love with it. And then, moved back 2018, worked for about a year, hit up EJ in 2019 summer, and I just said, hey man, I'm still thinking of doing this. I haven't lost hope. I still want to do this. Do you still want to do it? And he said, yeah, I do. We got together, literally just started from scratch, because we had tried 2 other times. We had 2 other iterations. Actually, what's funny about this is this espresso machine behind me that we're using for our shop today, that's now we're about to hit, we actually just hit 3 years open. We got this machine back in like 2015.
So you've had the machine just sitting there.
2016.
Were you using it like in a cart or no?
We bought it. I don't know what we were thinking. We went out to San Diego and we bought this machine, and it was really a dumb idea in hindsight. Like now it all makes sense and it's great. We can say, oh, great story to tell.
Awesome. Look at that. Yeah.
But this thing sat in my closet unused for literally 6 years.
Wow.
It was literally stored in my closet at my parents' house for 6 years, unused, and it was just like a reminder of the dream. It was like a just a reminder.
Sitting there talking to you, saying, "You ever gonna use me?"
Exactly. And so I hit him up in late 2019, and I just said, let's do this. And so we started. This was our 3rd iteration, and we had a different name before, and I think you might have even remembered that. Just completely started from scratch. So I was like, well, let's start thinking of a name. And so, the funny thing about us, I'll just say, is we're both so detail oriented in a lot of ways. So I'm talking like, we didn't just say, this name sounds cool, let's just slap a name on it, slap a logo together, and just call it a day.
It needed to mean something. It
had to mean something. There was a strategy behind everything we did. So when we were even picking the name, I was like, well, the most logical thing is we got to start with the name. And then I started thinking, and I was like, well, we studied like some of the biggest companies that are multi-location, national, global, even in some cases, and realized a lot of these companies had very original names. In some cases, the words were even made up. Like Google is a made up word.
Yeah, it wasn't something that could be confused with something else. Starbucks.
Right. You can't imitate it.
Right.
Exactly. So that was our starting point. Okay, let's find something that's not like, you can't imitate it. And so I would think of a word, and this happened for a while. I think of a really cool word, like, I'm sorry if the owner of this business watches this, but I thought of the kin. And I thought kin coffee would be super dope, actually.
Yeah, K-I-N?
Yeah, K-I-N, kin coffee, dope, like family, community, all the things that a coffee shop represents. And then I realized, that name's taken by like 3 places already. And there's one in Florida, one in, Los Angeles, and one in wherever else. And so it came down to, we were like, well, let's just invent a word. I literally was reading the dictionary in my room one night, starting from A. I started from A, and I was just trying to get inspiration because I was struggling, man. And I think I got maybe to like C. I don't even think I got to E. I was like, I can't do this. I closed the dictionary. I sat there and just started like thinking, meditating. And I was like, okay, like what? I was like, what sounds like, just what gives like a good, like what has a good sound to it? When you hear the word, it just sounds like inviting. It sounds warm. It sounds like all the things you would want a coffee shop to represent.
Yeah. And
I thought of the word like bloom.
Yeah.
I was like, bloom. Okay,
bloom
this is
sounds
cool.
Good.
Bloom is great.
Bloom's got to be taken though, right?
Right, exactly. Bloom's taken.
I want to say bloom was man, if I'm not mistaken, it was a vape pen. I remember I watched this documentary on vaping on Netflix. I want to say it was Bloom. I could be wrong.
Yeah.
I want to say that was, I remember that.
I think it might be. I mean, there's probably so many. And so then I'm like thinking about Bloom and like that. Well, I like that word, but you know what? Let me try to add something in here to kind of make it us, make it more unique, make it our own. And then I thought of Super Bloom.
Okay.
I was like, okay. And then just randomly this phrase like so Everbloom hopped into my head, and I sit there and I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, you know, that could be something. Everbloom. You know, I kind of like that, but I was unsure, honestly. It wasn't like an aha, that's got to be it. I remember I thought of it. I went out to the kitchen where EJ was sitting at like a bar on my parents' kitchen, because we had gotten together to like do like a planning session, and I was like, dude, what do you think of the word Everbloom? He's like, yeah, that sounds good. I like that. And I was like, okay, well, let's just shelf it for a day or two. We'll kind of just keep exploring other options. But yeah, long story short, or to make a long story a little shorter, that's kind of how we arrived at the name.
Bro, so when you think of that word today, Everbloom, 3 years into having your shop, what does it mean to you?
Yeah. So what I liked was this. When I was sitting there and that word, the phrase popped into my mind originally, I thought of the scripture that talks about being like a tree planted by the waters.
Come on.
You know, that bears fruit in its season.
Yeah. Leaves don't wither.
The leaves don't wither.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, well, that's a great representation of just this continuous prosperity. And I don't necessarily mean like, you know, I know that can be a dirty word in our world here.
Yeah.
But
I
like
think
the
it's
prosperity
coming back.
gospel. But
I think the word prosperity is being renewed.
It is.
Because there is such a anti-prosperity gospel camp now.
Yeah.
That God does want us to be prosperous, mind, body, and soul.
Correct.
You know, I beloved above all else, I pray you would prosper and be in good health.
Is that 3 John?
3 John 2.
Yes, sir.
Like, that to me is when I think prosperity, I think of people like you. I think about, the business is doing great, but your soul is great.
Yeah.
Your marriage is great.
Yeah.
Your understanding of friendship and people is great. You know, okay, so that's great, dude.
So that's what that means on that side of it. But then it also like from a, you know, because we're a business, we're in business for profit. We're not serving. We're not a Christian business. You know, I just want to make that clear too. Because
that's for sure.
Some people, I think, you know, they get so
want free coffee or what?
Well, I think they get so caught up in thinking that, you know, as when you're in business as a Christian, I think some people get so caught up in making sure everybody knows all the time what your stance is and on your faith that you forget to live like the kingdom. And the kingdom, when you present the kingdom to somebody, Jesus came to preach the gospel of the kingdom, as he calls it in the Gospels. When you present the gospel of the kingdom, it's appealing to someone who maybe doesn't even have the language for Christianity.
Wow.
You know, so someone cannot have the language for Christianity, but they can look at the life of the believer from afar and say, you know what? Something's different about that guy. His life is prospering. His relationships are prospering. He seems joyful. Like, I don't understand it because I know there's been adversity for him. We've very publicly gone through adversity in our business even.
Sure.
And I think what matters the most, though, is that, you know, living and presenting the kingdom, a kingdom lifestyle. And that can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. But I think simply put, it just means really walking and living the life that Jesus lived, not just talking about the things that Jesus talked about.
Sometimes evangelism is seen as these pocket moments where you have this opportunity to tell someone and witness to them. And I do think that we're in a day and age where the biggest revivals are coming out of people's lives, not just these events they put on. You know, we're seeing people want Jesus because they have friends that live differently, not just because someone told them at a bus stop, you need to follow Jesus. You're going to go to hell if you don't.
Right. Well, we're coming into an era now where it's no longer about the man of God, the singular men and women that were, you know, really popular before, where it's like everyone, like Billy Graham. And I think it was amazing what Billy Graham did. Massive general for the kingdom. But I think now we're in an era where it's no longer about the man of God. It's the God of man. It's now going to a group of people. God is looking for groups of people to rest upon. So businesses, churches that are moving with the Spirit of God. And what I realized the other day, man, it was so powerful. We were having a review or just a meeting with one of our staff members because we just check in periodically and whatnot. It's just what any business owner should do. And so we're sitting there having this meeting, and one of our staff members got super vulnerable. I ended the meeting by just telling this person what I appreciate about them. That's not a Christian. That's not an overtly Christian. Like, I didn't say God loves you. Yeah. Right. But Jesus would tell someone what he appreciates about them. That's the character, the nature of Jesus. And I'm telling this person what I appreciate about them. And they stop and they say, you know what? I really just want to tell you guys that they started crying. Wow. And they said, honestly, I just want to apologize for any ways that I haven't, you know, maybe upheld, you know, our culture here in this business. And I want to say that, like, I really appreciate you guys, because I love this job and I want to be here because I truly feel seen here. And I haven't experienced that before. And I started crying.
That's epic.
I mean, I started crying. That was like straight up, like, I mean, how do you, what? You know, I'm sitting there in that moment just thinking, like, this is what it's all about. Like, people need to feel seen.
It's a core longing.
It's a core longing.
Every human wants to be noticed, loved, seen, and encouraged. And encouragement is what people need the most, but for some reason, it's what people do the least.
And it's without an agenda, right? Like Jesus didn't come with this agenda of, by the end of this time, I'm going to have converted you, prayed for you.
And you're going to this synagogue now.
Exactly. It was none of that. It was just, here, freely I give to you. You know, it's the free gift of God, right? And so I walked away from that meeting just feeling deeply impacted, because I realized, like, yeah, this is so much bigger than us. And the opportunity we have here to make an impact on someone's life, you know, along their journey. Because I'm not a fool. I know that
it's not work at a coffee shop forever.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not like this is the dream.
It's not your end all be all. I get it, right?
Yeah.
But you know what? While you're here, we employ a lot of college age, younger adults. Yeah. While you're here, what we can do is we can partner with you and we can help you get to where maybe you're supposed to be going.
That's great.
I'm not, you know, it's funny because I have this perspective. I'm not ever going to push God on my employees, but I think that what Jesus would do if he were here is he would speak into their lives. Yeah. He would encourage them. Yeah. He would help them discover who they are, have more self-awareness, unlock desires in them. Wow. To hopefully get to where they need to go.
Yeah, it's so true though about the time you have with somebody, that impact. Like up in Fredonia, you know, Fredonia State University is the most affordable state university in all of New York. And so every semester we have kids that come up from the boroughs or come from central New York, and they come there and they join our church or they come to our worship team, because there are a lot of music students that come. And so they're on our worship team. And every semester we do a blessing over our students. And I see our church always get so sad. Oh, we're losing people. And it's like, that's an orphan spirit that says something's walking out of my life, instead of look at the impact we can make while they're here. Yeah. You know, and I love what your heart as a business owner to just recognize they're probably not going to be here 10 years working, making lattes, but I do have them for 6 months, or I do have them for 3 years. And the time that you have with them really matters. Speak a little bit more practically now to like business owners, like let's say starting up a business, like what was that like for you on a practical level? Yeah. Like going from, okay, I got this super dope name, God gave it to me, I got this vision, to like, how did you start?
I rolled up my sleeves. You know, it's really that though, in all seriousness. It's tempering expectations, practically speaking.
Okay.
It's noticing and recognizing that success is not linear. It's not a straight line. A lot of people think I'm going from A to B.
And it's like, bam, you're there.
They make a vision board, right? Make a vision board. What is my year going to look like? And you put all of the what it's going to look like at the end, and you think, it's going to be linear, straight shot. It's not that.
Wow.
I can promise you that.
Really?
I can promise you that it's not linear. It's going to be zigzag. It's going to be up and down. It's going to be back and forth sometimes. It's going to feel like you're taking 2 steps forward, 3 steps back some days. But I think just keeping in mind that it's all part of the journey was super important. And practically speaking, it just looked like, taking it step by step and saying, okay, well, what do I need to do? Like setting small, actionable goals. Because it's great. There are some people, and I think I'm thankful to God that the way my mind is wired. So it's great. EJ and I are in business because EJ is a visionary guy. He's very big picture. We're gonna take over the world type vibes.
And you're like,
I'm more tomorrow? Like, well, what's the road to take over the world look like? And EJ has this belief, like just undying belief that we'll get there no matter what. And my thought process is more methodical, more systems oriented.
Yeah, what a great way to have a business partner though, someone that kind of balances you out.
For sure. No, I think that's why we're in it. This is why it happened this way, because he kind of drives me in that way, and then I kind of drive him in the way that I drive him in. And so it's just I break it all down and I just say, okay, well, what do I need? When we were building the coffee cart that we started on, it was literally just, okay, well, let's draw this out, I guess. Let's take some measurements. We literally had string that we took and we like taped string around chairs to like use them as posts to say this is like the footprint of what our cart would look like, and did all kinds of wacky stuff. But
every little detail matters in the long run, right? You're only going to start a business once, well, hopefully, but it's like, why not put everything into it? Yeah. I know somebody right now in our hometown in Fredonia that's getting ready to start a coffee cart, and they're really thinking through the details.
I've been talking to him.
Have you really? That's great.
Yeah,
I think we're talking about the same guy.
Yes, we are.
And he's just going for it right now. And all I'm trying to do is let him know, like, bro, you are going to do great. This is going to be amazing. Because the thing with coffee is not everybody appreciates the craft. And so there's like coffee drinkers that drink it as fuel. There's people that drink it socially. There's people that actually have an appreciation for what they're holding in their hand and what went into that and the science behind it. And I think you got to find who you're going to make coffee for and just go for them.
It's correct. Knowing your market's
target
huge.
Audience.
Knowing your market's huge. And we had to do that here. There's certain things that we don't do that maybe like a Starbucks would do, but there's things that we do that maybe some really purist type coffee shops wouldn't do. Like we have syrups here.
Oh yeah, syrups are like a no-no for some of these coffee shops.
We add syrups to our coffee, and I know super hardcore purist coffee drinkers are like no syrups, and that's ridiculous. And and that maybe it is ridiculous to you, but you know what? That's not how you run a business. So
tell them, dude. Because I'm not a syrup guy either. I'm like, I want my coffee to taste like coffee. Yep. But I'm not the one that has to make sure it runs the business.
Right. But 90% of our customer base are latte syrups. Drinkers that like butterscotch lattes or vanilla lattes or whatever, and that's great.
Joint or something.
And that's great, man. Yeah. And I think that's important too when you're going into businesses. Know your target audience and be willing to make compromises to achieve that goal that you have in mind.
It's good. So did you guys have to make some compromises?
Yeah. So I mean for us, we sell mostly flavored latte drinks. That's probably, like I said, 90% of our sales are matchas or whatever.
And when you started, it's probably not what you're thinking you're going to do.
Yeah. So what's funny is what got me into this whole thing was the science and the art of pure coffee. Yeah. What I'm doing now is I don't even sell pour overs at my shop right now currently. Oh, we don't even have those on the menu.
Do them, huh?
Not at the moment. Yeah, probably the new shop we might introduce that. But it's just funny because it's like the evolution of any business owner, right? Like you start out doing something because you love it, and then you realize as it grows, the best sign of growth is that someone actually takes your position so you can grow further. So you come into it with a love of making drinks for people and being a barista. That's what I love to do. Yeah. And these days I spend maybe a couple hours a week, if any at all, behind the bar. because there's other things that I have to take care of now. And I think that's the thing that, if you're not keeping these things in mind, and this goes for anything in life, growth is going to require movement from you.
Wow.
It's going to require you to step out of the seat that you were in formerly, take off that hat, put on a new hat. You're going to have to change some things, and it can be uncomfortable.
But it
is what it is.
Man. That's such great wisdom, such great advice. Okay, this last segment here before we wrap up, I want to talk to you a little bit about marriage.
Yep.
Yeah, how long have you been married now?
About a year and a half.
Bro, let's go.
Yeah.
Okay, how did you guys meet?
Okay, met in house church, COVID 2020 summer.
Ooh, the glory year.
Yep, crazy. And like little house church of like 15 people. We're just friends for a little while, and then the next year in 2021 started officially dating. And yeah, honestly, just got to know her a lot through just that community of people that we built. That was pretty tight knit during that time, which was really important and cool.
Yeah, I talk to people that are dating, and it's always one-on-one time, and it's always like they're over this house or they're going out together. And I think the one-on-one time is important, but I think there's something healthy about socially in a group, getting to know someone you're interested in.
Yeah,
like having people there with you. Like my wife Randy, when we started dating, it was usually like we would hang out. We'd all go to IHOP after church.
Yep.
And there'd be 10 of us, but I would be focused on her.
Yeah.
And it's not that she didn't know I didn't like her or something, but we never were really like, oh, let's just hang out together for 3 hours.
Yeah.
It was always like in a group setting. I think it was better that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys met in a house church.
So met in the house church, and then just started hanging out in groups, and then eventually realized like, oh, I like her.
Yeah.
Asked her to go on a date after, I don't know, it's probably like 6 months or something of like from when we first met. And she turned me down at first, which was funny.
Shout out to your wife.
Story, yeah. But I was persistent, obviously.
Okay.
And started dating. I think it was we started dating in March of 21. So actually it was 3 years ago that we started dating officially, almost from right now. So we dated for about a year and a half and then got married. Like I said, about a year and a half ago.
That's awesome, dude. What has God shown you about marriage in that year and a half? Like, I know that there, same as a business, compromise is a real thing.
Yeah.
And things that I went into the marriage thinking they would be about, I had to adjust when I discovered how much I actually loved this woman.
Yeah.
What has God showed you over these year and a half?
Well, I think number one is that marriage truly is a partnership. I think when you're dating someone, you can get caught up in being infatuated with somebody and just whether it's for their looks or a certain thing about them. But I think sometimes we don't stop to think practically, is this person going to be a good life partner for me?
Yeah. Like for the rest of the time that I'm breathing.
Yeah.
Is this woman right for me?
Yeah. Can we partner in things together?
That's great.
Can we just get infatuated with one another?
Not just does she look good?
Yeah.
Because there will come a day where looks will not matter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And not can we just gush over each other and just sit there and stare at each other, I guess.
Yeah.
But, what can we partner in? Are our dreams similar? Do we have the same purpose, the same desires as far as like what God's put on our heart? Those are things that I've thought of more as we've gone into marriage, and I'm learning more every day. Like, at the end of the day, I think the true desire of every person on earth is we just want to partner with somebody.
Yeah.
We want help, right? It says that Eve was called Adam's helpmate. And I realized that is so true. Like just having someone to lean on when you're not feeling strong, when you need a hand with something.
Yeah.
Whether that's something really simple or something a little deeper.
Yeah.
It cannot be, the importance of that can't be stressed enough.
No, and I think I talk to couples that are always trying to fix each other. You get into this idea of we're married now and you don't like something about your partner, or, the honeymoon phase is over where you're like, oh, wow, I have to wake up with this person.
Yeah.
And I've always learned that when you see something in your wife that you don't like, it needs to start with you recognizing in yourself what you don't like about yourself. And, marriage is simply two people that choose to never give up on each other.
Yeah.
It's going to have highs and lows, but I've seen more success in me working on what I want to work on versus telling my wife what she needs to work on.
Yeah.
That never really goes good.
Yeah.
Telling each other, you're broken, you're this, you're that. It's like, no, I'm broken. I need to change my set of eyes here.
Yeah.
So a year and a half has gone by. You guys thinking about kids and all that?
Definitely are.
Yeah.
In California, though, it's a little expensive. So even the dog's got to get a job out here. Like,
real talk.
I mean, shoot, you know, hey, the business is growing, but no, but in all seriousness, yeah, we definitely have.
Beautiful.
I think we're just enjoying the first couple of years,
no rush.
marriage, and just trying to kind of find our rhythm, you know, get kind of steady. I think we are somewhat steady. We're kind of established now, more than we were in the first year, but. Yeah, it's been a discussion. I don't know exact timing, but definitely a desire I have. Definitely a desire she has.
So good. What's your wife's name?
Kim.
Yep. Kim, we love you.
Yeah.
That's so cool, man. Okay, what's next for Everbloom? I know that we're in your shop now. 3 years, this place has been here. Every time I come in here, I always love the coffee, but I always love the vibe.
Yeah.
White with plants. Wood and the beams, and it's just, I'm a sucker for the vibes.
Yeah, just simple, just warm, inviting. Yeah.
What's next for you guys?
Well, goodness, we're building out a massive new location in downtown Indio, just about, just a couple miles down the road from here. A lot of development going on over there. New college, county buildings, other businesses going up over there.
Are you moving, or will you have 2 locations now, or where are you at with that?
So I think what's going to happen is we're going to try to keep both to start.
Yeah.
We got a really favorable deal that we struck on the building over there. I mean, I'll put it to you this way. This building is about 900 square feet, and that building is about 2,800 square feet. Go. And the rent over there is cheaper.
Wow, 3 times the size.
3 times the size, cheaper rent. So
yeah, but more people get more room to hang out. People spend time in the coffee shop.
Yeah, so that's the next mission. By end of year this year, we're hoping to have that place fully opened. It'll be a space that's going to have more room to go, sit down, chill. It'll have food, pastries as well.
Do you do pastries now?
We don't right now.
Okay.
Our kitchen's so small, and we don't have that many great bakeries out here that deliver. So we're hoping to start baking our own stuff at that time.
Let's go.
And let's go. And then just going to continue to do events, man, and continue to build that out, because we've been doing a lot of events and caterings, and that's kind of been like another business that's developed.
Yeah, so you're actually doing almost catered events with coffee then.
We're doing catered events. So the same coffee cart that we started, that we built in my parents' garage,
you're still using it.
We're still using it to make money.
Was that something you had planned to do? Like catering? Did you see yourself doing events?
So this all happened
you got your shop?
This happened backwards for us. We thought it was going to be like 5 years maybe, or I thought it was going to be like 5 years before we would even start thinking about a shop. And literally year 1 we opened the shop. Yeah, which was crazy. February 28th of 2020 was our first day selling with the cart, and March 11th we were opening our shop.
Bro, what a trip.
1 year, dude. And so I thought we were going to take about 5 years to get this off the ground. So what would that put us at? It would have put us at maybe by 2025, next year, we would start to maybe plan to open the shop or be getting open. And instead what happened was year 1, going into year 2, we opened the shop, and then about a year ago, we started getting really consistent catering jobs, and that's just kind of grown into something entirely of its own. So no, it was not how we planned it, but it's how God planned it.
Well, I gotta tell you, man, it's so fun to watch. You inspire me, from that kid going up to Bethel to co-owner of Everbloom. I love EJ. I love you. I love the vibes, and I know God's gonna keep blessing you, man, because you got the right heart for it. How can people connect with you? How can they learn about Everbloom? Instagram or your website? Where are you at?
Yeah, so no personal social media, but follow Everbloom Coffee, Instagram, Facebook.
So good.
Those are our social links. You'll find our stuff there.
Yeah, and if you're ever in the Indio area, make sure you come and check this spot out. Tell them Billy and Randy sent you. And I don't know, they'll hook you up with something. Dude, so awesome. Well, I love you, man. Thank you so much for doing this. And thank you for watching. If you are still watching this video, drop in the comments what you liked about Matt's story. Let us know what kind of coffee drinker you are. We'll see you next time right here on Billy and Randy. You are loved. Bro. Awesome, dude.
Love it.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. That was fun.
So great.
That was fun.
That was fun. That was an hour.
Was that?
Yeah.
You ever you ever sit down with someone and like it's just like super hard to like keep the conversation going?
Yes.
Do you ever have those moments?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You must have gotten pretty good by now though, like kind of
like just
maneuvering.
Well, it's like you start knowing when it's going to go a different route, and like as you're talking about one thing, I'm already kind of like, okay, we need to go here.
Yeah.
But then if you mention something, I'm like, I'll put that over there.
File it away.
Yeah, and it's worth it, dude. You know what's crazy too is a lot of episodes, I go in thinking we're going to talk about one thing, and then we get on a whole second thing. Like I wasn't planning on talking about BETHEL at all.
Yeah.
But it just seemed like some good stuff.
Yeah.